Everywhere you look, people are carrying invisible weights. The deadlines, the expectations, the financial struggles, the family pressures. Sometimes it feels like the whole world is sitting on your shoulders. And maybe you've discovered this truth. No matter how hard you try to get everything under control, something always slips out of your grasp. You fix one problem and another shows up. You meet one demand and three more arrive. That's the nature of living in a pressure-filled world on Stu. But here's the good news. Peace is not the absence of problems. Peace is not found in a perfect schedule or in finally getting everyone to approve of you. Peace is an inner calm, a quiet confidence that comes from knowing you are not carrying life on your own shoulders. It's learning how to rest inside even when the outside world feels like a storm. The first step toward that kind of peace is shifting your focus. Most of us fix our eyes on what we cannot control, the opinions of others, the economy, the future. But peace begins when you turn your focus toward the one who is steady when everything else shakes. When you learn to say, I don't have to understand everything, but I trust that there is a bigger hand holding me through this, pressure loses its power over you. The second step is surrender. Pressure multiplies when we think we have to be the savior of our own story, fixing everything, solving everything, proving ourselves to everyone. But peace comes when you lay that burden down. Surrender is not giving up. It's handing over. It's choosing to release control and trust that you are guided, not abandoned. The third step is rhythm. You were never created to live at the pace of constant hurry. The world says, do more, run faster, never stop. But peace grows when you build rhythms of rest, when you pause, when you breathe, when you listen. Those quiet moments of reflection and prayer are not wasted. They are where your strength is renewed. Peace comes through perspective. You may be facing pressures that feel overwhelming right now. But step back and remember, this moment is not forever. Every season changes. What feels unbearable today can become tomorrow's testimony. And the weight you carry now can one day become the wisdom you share with others who are under the same pressure. Peace is possible, not because your world becomes lighter, but because your heart becomes stronger. Not because the pressure disappears, but because you learn to rest in the one who holds you steady. Peace is not the absence of problems, but the presence of calm in the storm. This truth becomes clearer when we look at the way life actually works. Every single person carries something heavy: financial concerns, family tensions, health struggles, or the constant pull of expectations from work and society. We think that if we could just solve these problems, if we could somehow clear every obstacle, then finally we would be free to rest. But that's an illusion, because as soon as one problem fades away, another one rises to take its place. The bills get paid, but then an unexpected repair shows up. A relationship mends, but a new misunderstanding begins. If peace were dependent on having no problems, then peace would be an unreachable dream, because no life is ever problem-free. Real peace has to be something deeper, something that exists even in the middle of pressure, something that cannot be taken away by shifting circumstances. Imagine a storm outside your window. The wind is howling, the rain is beating down, and everything seems chaotic. You cannot stop the storm by wishing it away. But inside your home, if the walls are steady and the roof is firm, you can sit in safety even while the storm rages. That is the picture of true peace. It does not require the weather to be calm. It requires a foundation strong enough to hold you in the middle of the storm. That calm comes from a deeper trust, a deeper center, a deeper confidence that you are not left to face life alone. Most of us spend enormous amounts of energy trying to eliminate the storms. We try to earn enough money, organize our schedules perfectly, get everyone to like us, and control every detail of the future. But even if you succeed for a short time, it is never permanent. The storm eventually breaks through, because life on this earth was never designed to be free of trials. The real secret is not to chase a storm-free life, but to build an inner anchor that keeps you steady when the winds come. That anchor is what gives calm when everything outside is turbulent. Think about the people you admire most, the ones who carry a quiet strength. Chances are they are not people who have lived lives free of hardship. More often than not, They are people who have walked through valleys, carried pain, and endured loss, yet came out with a serenity that others notice. But that serenity comes from discovering that peace can exist in the very places where problems are loudest. They have learned the difference between controlling circumstances and controlling their response. They know that while they cannot silence the storm, they can cultivate a stillness inside their own heart. There is a great difference between surface calm and deep calm. Surface calm is fragile. It is like the top of the ocean, easily stirred by the wind. But deep calm is like the ocean floor, untouched by the storms above. You can only find that depth when you stop chasing external control and instead rest in the assurance that you are cared for, guided, and upheld by something greater than yourself. This doesn't mean ignoring problems or pretending they don't exist. It means facing them with a centered heart, refusing to let external chaos dictate your internal condition. When pressure comes, it often exposes what is inside us. If we are filled with anxiety, the storm only magnifies it. If we are filled with fear, the storm makes it louder. But if we are filled with trust, with faith, with a settled sense of purpose, then even the storm cannot shake us. That is why peace must be rooted in something deeper than favorable conditions. It must be rooted in a foundation that does not move when life does. In practical terms, this peace shows up in simple ways. It is the ability to pause before reacting, to breathe instead of exploding, to listen instead of panicking. It is the strength to say no when the world is pressuring you to say yes to everything. It is the quietness that lets you sleep even when your to-do list is not finished. It is the courage to let go of people-pleasing and embrace the freedom of being secure in who you are. These are not small things. They are the evidence of peace at work in real life. This peace is not about escaping reality, but about engaging with reality differently. The storms still come, but you meet them with steadiness. The pressures still weigh on you, but they do not crush you. The problems still exist, but they do not define your inner state. Instead of being tossed around by every wave, you stand anchored. Instead of being consumed by every fire, you remain calm in the center. That calm is not natural. It is something you grow into, something you choose each day by where you place your trust and how you shape your perspective, your focus from what you can't control to the one who never changes. Much of the anxiety and pressure we carry comes from trying to manage things far outside our reach. We want to control how people treat us, what others think of us, how the economy will unfold, or how the future will play out. But the harder we try to grip what isn't ours to hold, the more restless we become. It is like chasing after the wind. No matter how fast you run, you never catch it, and all you're left with is exhaustion. Peace begins when you release your grasp on the uncontrollable and turn your attention to the one who remains steady when everything else shifts. Life is full of moving targets. Opinions change, markets rise and fall, health is uncertain, and relationships go through seasons. If you anchor your sense of peace to any of those things, your heart will rise and fall as quickly as they do. One compliment makes you feel secure. One criticism makes you feel crushed. One good week of income gives you confidence. One bad week leaves you panicking. You cannot build lasting peace on something that is always changing. That is why the shift of focus is so important. Peace grows when your eyes rest on what is constant, stable, and unshakable. Think of it like standing in the middle of a crowded street with cars rushing by, horns blaring, and people pushing past. If you focus on every moving part, your mind will be overwhelmed. But if you lift your gaze to the mountain in the distance, standing firm and unmoved by the chaos below, suddenly you feel grounded again. The mountain hasn't moved. The traffic may roar, the noise may rise, but your focus on something unchanging gives you perspective and steadiness. In the same way, when your eyes are fixed on the one who does not change, your heart can stay calm even when everything around you is shifting. We often make the mistake of measuring our peace by our progress in fixing problems. If we can get people to like us, keep our schedules in order, or control every detail, then maybe we'll feel at rest. But the reality is that the more you focus on controlling others and the future, the more restless you become. Peace does not come from mastering circumstances. It comes from trusting that even when you don't understand the circumstances, you are still being held. This shift of focus is not passive. It is an active choice you make daily. Every time you feel anxiety creeping in, you are faced with a decision. Will you stare at the storm, or will you look to the one who can carry you through it? And every time fear whispers about tomorrow, you choose whether to feed that fear with your attention or to turn your thoughts toward the one who promises stability. Where your focus goes, your peace follows. Consider how much of your mental energy is spent worrying about what you cannot control. We replay conversations in our heads, imagining what people think of us. We plan every detail of the future, trying to prepare for every possible outcome. We scroll through endless news updates, hoping that knowledge will give us a sense of security. But all of it drains us because none of it was meant to give us peace. The moment you turn your gaze from those shifting sands to the solid foundation of what is eternal and steady, a weight begins to lift. You realize you were never meant to carry the burden of controlling everything, only to trust the one who already holds everything together. This shift in focus also changes how you see your problems. Instead of seeing them as insurmountable mountains, you begin to see them in perspective. You realize they are temporary, that they cannot define your future, and that they do not determine your worth. When your eyes are on the one who never changes, problems shrink to their proper size. They are still real, but they no longer consume your identity or steal your calm. The mind is powerful, and what you focus on shapes how you feel. If your attention is locked on fear, you will live in fear. If your attention is locked on uncertainty, you will live in restlessness. But if your attention is locked on the one who is greater than every storm, you will begin to live with a peace that does not depend on external conditions. It is not denial of reality. It is clarity of perspective. You are choosing to see beyond the immediate and temporary to the eternal and unshakable. The world trains us to seek control. Every advertisement tells us we can have the perfect life if we just try harder, plan smarter, or buy the right product. But true peace will never be found in control. It will be found in surrendering control and shifting your gaze. This doesn't mean you stop working, stop planning, or stop caring. It simply means you no longer make your peace dependent on those things. You do your part, but your heart rests not in outcomes, but in the assurance that you are held by something greater than outcomes. Surrender the burden of trying to fix everything by yourself. One of the greatest sources of inner pressure is the belief that you have to carry the weight of the world on your own shoulders. We live in a culture that constantly tells us to be self-sufficient, to prove ourselves, to hustle harder, and to never show weakness. The message is clear. If something is broken, it's your responsibility to fix it. If life is falling apart, you must hold it all together. That mindset might look strong on the outside, but on the inside, it drains you, leaving you weary, anxious, and overwhelmed. True peace comes when you realize you were never meant to carry everything alone. Surrender is not failure. It is freedom. The picture many people have of surrender is one of defeat, like raising a white flag and giving up. But surrender in this sense is different. It is not quitting life or abandoning responsibility. It is releasing the illusion of control and admitting that you cannot do everything in your own strength. It is letting go of the need to be the savior of your own story and instead trusting that there is a greater hand guiding your path. That release is where peace begins to grow, because the weight you could never carry is finally placed where it belongs. Think of someone trying to hold a huge stack of boxes so tall that they can't even see where they're walking. At first, they manage wobbling side to side, straining under the load. But eventually, the weight becomes too much and the boxes start to fall. That's how many of us live. We carry burdens of expectation, fear, responsibility, and regret, stacking them higher and higher until we can barely move. Surrender is the moment you finally stop trying to balance them all and allow someone stronger to carry them for you. The relief is immediate, and suddenly you can walk freely again. The burden of fixing everything often comes from pride. We want to be seen as capable, competent, and strong enough to handle life. But deep down, we all know how fragile we are. We know how quickly one phone call, one diagnosis, one loss, or one disappointment can bring us to our knees. When you surrender, you admit that you are human, that you have limits, and that you are not designed to hold every weight alone. That humility does not make you weaker. It makes you wiser. It opens the door for strength beyond your own to sustain you. There is also the burden of responsibility for others. Many people live with the pressure of believing they must make everyone around them happy, solve everyone's problems, and keep everyone satisfied. But that pressure is crushing because you will never be able to control the choices, emotions, or responses of others. Surrender is acknowledging that you can love people, guide people, and support people, but you cannot control them. That realization sets you free from the impossible task of carrying lives that were never yours to carry. Surrender also means releasing the timeline you've created for yourself. So much of our stress comes from expectations we've placed on our own shoulders. Where we should be by a certain age, how much we should have achieved, what kind of lifestyle we should be living. When life doesn't match that script, we scramble to fix it, desperately trying to force things into place. But surrender is choosing to let go of your script and trust a bigger plan. It is saying, even when my life doesn't look the way I imagine, I believe it is still being written with purpose. That shift brings peace because you are no longer a slave to your own deadlines. There is incredible strength in acknowledging your weakness when you stop pretending to have it all together. When you release the need to prove yourself to others, you begin to taste freedom. You find rest in simply being instead of constantly striving. You discover that surrender is not about losing control, but about gaining peace. It's not about abandoning effort, but about aligning your effort with a strength greater than your own. Surrender transforms your inner dialogue. Instead of constantly saying, "It's all up to me. I have to fix this. I can't let anything fall apart," you begin to say, "I am not alone in this. I can release this burden. I can rest even when everything is not perfect." That change in language shifts your entire mindset from one of striving to one of trust. And as your mindset shifts, so does your experience of peace. The irony is that when you stop trying to fix everything, you actually become more effective at handling what is truly yours to handle. Surrender clears away the unnecessary weight and allows you to focus on what really matters. You gain clarity, energy, and perspective because you are no longer stretched thin trying to control what was never in your power. You step into a lighter way of living, one where peace and freedom replace pressure and striving that create rhythms of rest to renew strength in our hurried world. One of the greatest challenges today is the pace at which we live. We are constantly on the move, rushing from one obligation to another, juggling responsibilities, and trying to keep up with endless demands. The world rewards speed, hustle, and productivity, but it rarely encourages rest. Yet without rhythms of rest, even the strongest among us will eventually burn out. Our bodies, minds, and spirits were never designed to run endlessly without pause. Just like a musical composition needs spaces of silence to make the melody beautiful, our lives need intentional pauses to make them sustainable. Rest is not simply sleeping or taking a vacation once in a while. Rest is a rhythm, a way of living that honors the need for renewal. It is the practice of creating moments, small or large, where you step away from the noise and allow yourself to breathe deeply. It is the discipline of making space in your schedule for quiet, reflection, and restoration. When rest becomes part of your rhythm, peace follows naturally because your soul has room to breathe and your strength has room to be replenished. The hurried world we live in constantly tells us that rest is weakness, that pausing means you are falling behind. But the truth is the opposite. When you rest, you actually regain strength to move forward with clarity and focus. Just as a phone battery cannot run indefinitely without recharging, neither can you. Many people ignore this reality until they are forced into rest by exhaustion, sickness, or emotional collapse. But wisdom is learning to build rest into your life before you reach that breaking point. There are different layers of rest, and each one matters. Physical rest is the most obvious. Your body needs regular cycles of work and sleep, movement and stillness. When you deprive your body of rest, it begins to break down, and the stress you feel on the inside manifests in weariness on the outside. But beyond physical rest, there is also emotional rest. This is the relief that comes from stepping away from constant conflict, noise, or emotional drain. It is allowing yourself permission not to carry every story, every burden, every pressure from others. And then there is spiritual rest, the deepest kind, which comes from anchoring your heart in quietness and renewal, where you remind yourself that your worth is not in your productivity, but in simply being. Creating rhythms of rest requires intentional choices, because the world will not hand it to you. Your schedule will always try to fill itself with more to do. Your phone will always buzz with another notification. Your responsibilities will always scream for attention. That is why rest must be chosen, defended, and protected. It might mean setting aside a few minutes each morning to sit in silence before the day begins. It might mean turning off your devices at night and allowing your mind to disengage from the constant flood of information. It might mean carving out one day a week where you step back from work and remember that life is more than deadlines and tasks. These rhythms, though small, have the power to transform the way you experience peace. When you neglect rest, pressure multiplies. Every problem feels bigger. Every demand feels heavier. Every word feels sharper. But when you are rested, you can face the same problems with fresh strength, a calmer mind, and a clearer heart. Rest does not remove the challenges, but it changes how you meet them. Instead of reacting in exhaustion, you respond with resilience. Instead of feeling overwhelmed, you carry perspective. That is the power of rest. It renews you for what lies ahead. There is also a relational dimension to rest. When you are hurried and drained, it is difficult to be fully present with the people you love. Your conversations become rushed, your patience wears thin, and your presence feels scattered. But when you are rested, you bring your best self into relationships. You listen more deeply, you laugh more freely, and you connect more meaningfully. Rest not only strengthens you, it strengthens the bonds you share with others. Rhythms of rest are not selfish. They are essential. Adorison. Just as a farmer allows the soil to rest between harvests so it can remain fertile, you must allow your own life space to breathe so you can remain fruitful. Constant output without renewal leads to depletion. But when you pause, you create capacity for greater strength, creativity, and clarity in the future. Peace flourishes when you no longer treat life as a race to be won, but as a journey to be walked with balance and intention. That deep perspective. Pressures are temporary, but peace can be lasting. One of the hardest things to remember when you are in the middle of pressure is that what feels overwhelming today will not last forever. The human heart has a way of magnifying the present moment until it feels like it will never end. A season of financial struggle feels endless. A conflict in a relationship feels permanent. An unexpected setback feels like the end of your story. But perspective allows you to step back and see that time moves forward, seasons change, and even the heaviest weights eventually shift. Pressure thrives when you believe it will last forever, but peace begins when you remind yourself that it won't. Perspective is like standing on a mountain overlooking the valley below. When you are in the valley, surrounded by steep cliffs, it feels as though the walls will trap you forever. But when you rise to a higher place, you see the valley has an end and there is a path that leads you out. That is what perspective does. It lifts your eyes from the momentary to the eternal, from the temporary struggle to the bigger picture. It doesn't deny the reality of your pain, but it helps you see that pain is not the end of the story. When you lose perspective, pressure becomes overwhelming. You begin to believe that this setback defines you, that this season will always be your reality, and that you will never break free from the weight pressing against you. But when you regain perspective, peace returns. You remember that life has always been a series of ups and downs, challenges and breakthroughs, endings and new beginnings. You can look back and see other moments when you felt crushed, but you made it through. That memory of survival becomes fuel for present peace, reminding you that Just as you have come through before, you will come through again. Perspective also teaches you that pressure is not wasted. The very situations that feel unbearable often become the very experiences that shape your strength and wisdom. A person who has walked through fire can stand stronger than before. The lessons you learn in seasons of pressure often become the very tools you use to help others later. What feels like a burden now may one day become your testimony, your story of endurance and hope. That realization brings peace because it tells you that even in the pressure, something meaningful is being formed. Another part of perspective is understanding that peace is not tied to perfection. Many people wait to feel peace until everything is fixed, everyone is happy, and every box is checked. But life rarely offers that kind of perfection. If peace depended on everything being ideal, you would spend your whole life chasing something you could never catch. Perspective says that peace is possible even when things are incomplete, even when the story is still unfolding, even when the outcome is uncertain. It frees you from postponing peace until tomorrow and allows you to embrace it today. Keeping perspective also means recognizing the difference between what matters now and what will matter in the long run. Pressure has a way of making small things feel enormous. A single harsh word can feel like a collapse. A single mistake can feel like the end of your reputation. A single disappointment can feel like the loss of your future. But when you take a step back, you realize most of these things are not as defining as they seem. They will fade, they will be forgotten, and they will lose their power over you. What will last is not the pressure itself, but the character it built in you, the lessons it taught you, and the peace you cultivated in spite of it. Peace is lasting because it is not tied to circumstances, but to perspective. When your perspective is wide, when your vision stretches beyond the immediate, peace takes root. You stop being tossed by every wave of circumstance because you know the waves are temporary. You stop being crushed by every burden because you know the burden is shaping you for something greater. You stop being paralyzed by fear of the unknown because you know that time reveals answers in ways you cannot see right now. Holding on to perspective does not make life easy, but it makes it bearable. It gives you hope in the middle of hardship, strength in the middle of struggle, and calm in the middle of chaos. When you remind yourself that pressures are temporary, you loosen their grip over your heart. And when you remind yourself that peace can be lasting, you choose to live from a place of calm even when life is loud. So keep perspective. Remember that this moment is not the whole story. Remember that the pressures you feel today will not always be here tomorrow. And remember that peace is available, not someday in the future, but here and now when you choose to see beyond the temporary and anchor yourself in what lasts. Because pressures will pass, but peace, once planted deep within you, can remain and carry you forward into every season ahead.